It's time to discuss markets with Eric Osterhaus. He is with Paragon Ag Advisors in Silver Lake, Kansas. We had the export sales numbers that were out, and I know I bring these up every week, it seems like, but they are important because we're a little more than 50% behind in our exports for corn. And this last export sales number, while it was better than the week prior, it still doesn't have us back to where we should be.
Yeah, that's been a little difficult to get a handle on, and really like what you're seeing if you're trying to be friendly to the corn market. It's just we've stumbled out of the block the whole year on our exports on corn. We continue to do that. Maybe a little light, so from a demand standpoint, I think that's been weighing on the corn market here a little bit, even with some of our more friendlier feelings in regard to our trade disputes with China seeming to be moving in the right direction. Corn, really by all intents and purposes, really hasn't gone very far here in the last couple weeks. The only maybe light at the end of the tunnel, at least from a demand standpoint, is seeing that our margins on ethanol finally seem to be picking up just a little bit here in the last 2-3 weeks. So maybe we'll see something like that. That'll be the tip of the iceberg, and we'll see our exports finally turn the corner. Just been a long wait and waiting for that to happen.
What worries me is how much demand destruction we've done so far. And even at these low prices, it seems like it's still a challenge to be able to sell our crops overseas. I like what you had to say about the ethanol grind, because we are starting to see that pick up just a little bit. We had an increase in this last ethanol report of production. We're getting closer to that million barrels per day that we got used to. But it seems like we still have a lot of competition. I would have thought by now that maybe the coffers would have been empty in South America, but it seems like they're still selling corn.
Yes, we haven't seen that. I know that's been a discussion point for some time, is that, and especially this time of the year, we're hoping to see that they'll have to start tightening up. We haven't seen that as of yet, and so they're still competitive in the market. Of course, with the U.S. dollar, unfortunately, still staying strong, there's been some hope, and we get brief glimpses of maybe the dollar taking a few steps back, and then it seems our news turns around, our economy turns around, we recover, and the dollar follows our indexes back up again. And so the international trade and our competitiveness there, it just hasn't come along enough yet, and we certainly haven't seen any signs of them running out of corn yet with our neighbors to the south, unfortunately.
All right. What about soybeans? I looked and looked and looked for China to show up in those soybean sales back on Thursday and really didn't see anything. Makes me wonder if they've bought everything that they need now, especially with African swine fever, that they're going to wait now and see if we have progress on more trade talks before they do anything else at this point.
And I think that is part of it. Everybody got their hopes up here a couple weeks ago when we saw that really nice number come out there on soybeans, tied in with the news, again, that our discussions are moving ahead. I think it's definitely a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back type thing that we've seen in regards to exports on beans. They're still better than what they were, but by no means near a level that really excites the market just yet. And there is some concern that, again, I think another estimate came out here recently showing the swine herd there in China being estimated to be 20% lower than what it was last year, even with that smaller number they had. So there still is concern regarding demand destruction there in China, although again they still seem to be buying, relatively speaking, quite a bit of beans, just not from us. So at least not in the big enough volumes that we need.
Well, they did say they would roll back the tariff on, what was it, 10, some number that they had earlier this week, but they didn't buy from us. And so, yeah, while that kind of news is helpful, it certainly doesn't change the paradigm. I want to talk about the livestock too while we're here. The beef export sales number wasn't that bad, but the pork export sales number, in contrast to the week before, down 90-some%. That sounds like a big number, and it is. But we still need to get these pork exports to pick up. We still need to get China on as a customer if we're going to get rid of all of this surplus that we have in the United States and get some of these prices. We're trading at almost an $18 premium on the deferred contracts than we are the nearby contract. That is a big jump, and I think it's going to take exports to get us out of that, don't you?
Yes, and that's certainly a concern. The volumes and the amount of pork that we have here, we've built this up over the last several months on all the excitement of getting this deal done, the fact that pork supplies are drying up in China, and the thought process that it's going to take some time for China to rebuild their pork industry. Something a guy and a gal has to consider at least is that what if China, who is busy, believe me, in the background trying to rebuild their pork industry just as quickly as they can. What if they're able to accomplish that just a little bit quicker? Maybe that is why we're seeing soybean demand from South America still continue to move right along. They're still buying beans from us. Maybe if we see this trade deal go through, you would think, well, geez, if you don't have a demand for those beans because of your pork herd being so much smaller, but yet that is one of the first initial things that they continue to buy, maybe part of that is factoring back into the fact that they believe they will be able to rebuild this pork herd quicker than maybe what we're giving them credit for. That's kind of a worst case scenario that's out there on the pork, but I think it's something at least to consider.
All right, what's the address and the phone number?
www.myagadvisor.com and 888-452-8751.